I'd like to pay for pump 3, please.
Maryland plates? Who'd you steal that car from?
It's a rental officer.
Shut up! God, you stink. When's the last time you showered? He grabbed her arm, dragged her to her car, pulled out her folded military fatigues, and hurled them onto the asphalt. Trash like you doesn't serve this country. You disgust me. You're under arrest. A trucker laughed. A teenager filmed. Nobody moved. But what Derek Hollis didn't know, what nobody at that gas station could have possibly imagined, was that he had just made the worst mistake of his entire life.
Let me tell you about Stillwater County, Virginia. Population just under 12,000. One stoplight, 2 churches. A post office that closes at noon on Wednesdays. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and the sheriff's deputies have more time than they have calls. It's quiet. It's slow. And for most people passing through, it's nothing more than a gas station and a speed limit sign on the way to somewhere else. The Crossroads fuel stop sits at the edge of town on a 2-lane road lined with Virginia pines. 2 pumps, a small convenience store with a faded Coca-Cola sign above the door. Fluorescent lights buzzing inside. The smell of burnt coffee and floor cleaner. A country song playing low on the speakers behind the register. That's where Audrey Sanders pulled in around 6:45 on a Tuesday evening. She was driving a silver rental sedan with Maryland plates, dark jeans, plain gray hoodie, running shoes, no jewelry except a simple watch, hair pulled back. She looked like a woman who'd been on the road for a few hours and just needed gas before the last stretch of a long drive. And that's exactly what she was. She filled up the tank, walked inside, grabbed a bottle of water and a protein bar, and got in line behind a man buying cigarettes. Behind the register was Kelsey Norris, 22 years old, worked the evening shift 4 nights a week. Kelsey would later tell investigators, under oath, that Audrey Sanders was the most polite customer she had all day. But right now, all Kelsey saw was a tired woman with a kind smile. "Long drive?" Kelsey asked. Audrey nodded. "You could say that." She paid in cash, said thank you, walked back to her car. And here's a detail that won't mean anything to you right now, but remember it. When Audrey opened the back door to drop her water bottle on the seat, the duffel bag shifted. It was large, dark green, nondescript, and clipped to the strap was a small American flag pin. Inside that bag, folded with military precision, was a set of Army combat uniforms. Beneath the uniform sat a Pentagon building pass on a lanyard, a Department of Defense travel order folder, and a leather portfolio embossed with the letters A. Sanders, D-A-S-D, L and M. None of this was visible from outside the car. To anyone watching, it was just a bag. Now, across the street from the Crossroads fuel stop, parked in the shadow of a closed hardware store, sat a Stillwater County Sheriff's cruiser. Inside that cruiser was Deputy Derek Hollis. 9 years on the force, born and raised in Stillwater, knew every road, every backyard, every last name in town. Hollis had a reputation, not the good kind. 2 years earlier, a formal complaint had been filed against him. Excessive force during a routine traffic stop. The complainant was a 19-year-old black kid driving his mother's car. The complaint went nowhere. The body cam footage from that stop was listed as unavailable due to equipment malfunction. That phrase would come up again, but not yet. Right now, Derek Hollis was eating sunflower seeds, spitting the shells out the window, and watching the parking lot of the gas station the way a man watches something when he's got nothing else to do. He saw the silver sedan pull in, Maryland plates. He saw the driver get out, a black woman, alone. He sat up. He didn't call dispatch. He didn't run the plates. He didn't check for warrants or stolen vehicle reports. He just watched her walk inside, walk back out, and open her car door. Then he pulled his cruiser across the street, rolled into the gas station lot, parked directly behind her rental, blocking her in, and hit his lights. No siren, just the red and blue flashing against the gas pumps and the pine trees and the faded Coca-Cola sign. He stepped out, adjusted his belt, walked slow. Inside her car, Audrey saw the lights in her rearview mirror. She didn't panic. She didn't reach for her phone. She placed both hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2, fingers spread, fully visible, and waited. She had done this before, not because she'd ever been in trouble, but because she knew exactly what was about to happen, and she knew exactly how it needed to go. By 6:52 p.m., the interaction hadn't even started yet. But everything that was about to happen in the next 11 minutes would end a man's career, launch a federal inquiry, and put this small Virginia town on national news. Derek Hollis reached the driver's side window and knocked on it twice with his knuckle. Hard. Like he was knocking on a door he was about to kick in. Audrey lowered the window. Both hands are still on the steering wheel. License and registration. No greeting. No good evening. No explanation, just a command. Audrey reached slowly toward the glove compartment. I'm going to open this to get the rental agreement. My license is in my back pocket. I didn't ask for a play-by-play. Just hand it over. She gave him her Maryland driver's license and the rental agreement. He took them, looked at the license, looked at her, back at the license, held it up to his flashlight like he was checking for a counterfeit. Maryland plates in Stillwater, where are you headed? Fort Liberty. I have business there tomorrow morning. What kind of business? Work-related. I'm happy to answer your questions, officer, but could I ask why I was stopped? He didn't answer. He didn't even acknowledge the question. He just shined his flashlight past her face and into the back seat. The beam landed on the duffel bag. What's in the bag? Personal belongings and work materials. Step out of the vehicle. Officer, I still haven't been told why I'm being... I said step out. Now. Don't make me say it again. Audrey knew her rights. She knew she had every legal basis to stay in that seat until he gave her a reason. She also knew, from experience, from statistics, from a lifetime of being a black woman in America, that exercising those rights right now could cost her more than swallowing them. She made a calculation. The same kind of calculation she made in Pentagon briefing rooms, weighing risk against outcome in fractions of a second. She stepped out, slowly, hands visible the entire time. Hands on the hood! She placed her palms flat on the warm metal, fingers spread, still, silent. Derek keyed his shoulder radio, not the main dispatch channel, but a private frequency. Travis, swing by the crossroads. I got one. That's what he said. Not I have a traffic stop. Not I need backup for a routine encounter. He said, I got one. Like he'd caught something. Travis Boone arrived 3 minutes later. Second deputy. Younger, quieter. He parked behind Derek's cruiser and walked over without asking a single question about what was happening or why. Derek patted Audrey down. It was aggressive. His hands moved slowly, too slowly. Across her shoulders, down her sides, along her waist. It lasted over 90 seconds. A standard pat-down for a non-resistant subject takes under 30. Audrey stared straight ahead at the gas station wall. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She breathed. At the next pump, a trucker named Carl Dawson was refueling his rig. He'd been watching since Derek's lights went on. Now he reached into his cab, grabbed his phone, and quietly hit record. He didn't say anything. He didn't intervene. He just pointed the camera and let it run. 4 minutes and 22 seconds. That footage would matter more than anyone at that gas station could have imagined. But not yet. Derek walked to the back of Audrey's rental, opened the door, pulled the duffel bag off the seat and dropped it on the ground. Unzipped it, reached inside. The first thing he pulled out was the uniform, a set of Army combat uniforms, folded tight, edges crisp, the name tape pressed flat. He held it up with one hand like a man holding a rag, looked at it, looked at Audrey, and smiled. What is this, a costume? Travis, standing behind him, let out a short laugh. Audrey's voice was steady. That is a United States Army uniform, officer. Derek stared at her for a long second. Then he opened his fingers and let the uniform drop onto the asphalt. It landed in a patch of oil and gravel next to the rear tire. The name tape, Sanders, faced up toward the fluorescent lights. Nobody picked it up. He reached into the bag again. This time he pulled out a lanyard with a card attached. A Pentagon building pass. Audrey Sanders' photograph on the front. Her title printed in clear black letters beneath her name. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Logistics and Materiel Readiness. Derek held it for about 4 seconds. He didn't read it. He didn't turn it over. He tossed it back into the bag like a piece of junk mail. Then he pulled out a folder, Department of Defense travel order, stamped and signed, and didn't even open it, just dropped it on top of the uniform on the ground. He had every answer in his hands, every piece of evidence that would have told him exactly who he was dealing with, and he threw it on the ground because he'd already decided. He decided the moment he saw Maryland plates and a black woman. Everything after that was just the performance. Derek walked back to where Audrey stood, palms still flat on the hood. He leaned in close enough that she could smell the sunflower seeds on his breath. So let me get this straight. You're driving through my county with out-of-state plates, a bag full of surplus store junk, and you want me to believe you've got business at Fort Liberty? He laughed through his nose. Lady, the only business you've got is whatever I say you've got. You understand me? I'm asking you one more time respectfully. What is the reason for this stop? Derek's smile disappeared. His voice dropped. The reason is I decide what happens on this road. Not you, me. And right now what's happening is you're going to answer every question I ask, or you're going to spend tonight in a cell. Your choice. Audrey said nothing. There was nothing left to say that would change what was coming. Derek turned to Travis. Cuff her. Travis hesitated. Just for a moment, a flicker of something crossing his face. Then he stepped forward, pulled Audrey's wrists behind her back, and closed the handcuffs. The click echoed off the gas pumps. The charge: obstruction of a law enforcement officer. Audrey Sanders had not obstructed anything. She had answered every question asked. She had stepped out of the vehicle when ordered. She had placed her hands on the hood without being told twice. She had not raised her voice. She had not moved. She had not resisted. She had done everything right, and none of it mattered. But as the cuffs tightened, Audrey did one thing. She turned her head, slowly, deliberately, and looked directly into the body camera mounted on Derek's chest. And she spoke. Calm, clear, every syllable precise. My name is Audrey Sanders. I am a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Your body camera is recording this, and I want you to know that I know that. Derek blinked. The words hit the air and fell flat. He didn't process them, didn't react, didn't even pause. He just grabbed her arm and walked her toward the cruiser. Travis followed, eyes on the ground. If you ever rewatch this story, and I think you will, come back to this moment. This is the exact second that Derek Hollis's career ended. He heard the words. He had the title. He had the badge, the ID, the uniform, the travel orders, every single piece of proof, and he chose to ignore all of it. This is where it stopped being a mistake. This is where it became a choice. Inside the gas station, Kelsey Norris stood frozen behind the counter. She'd watched the whole thing through the window, the pat-down, the uniform on the ground, the handcuffs. She didn't go outside, she didn't shout, but she did something. She walked to the back office, found the CCTV system, and saved the last 30 minutes of interior and exterior footage before the system could overwrite it. She didn't know why she did it. She just felt like someone should. Carl Dawson, the trucker, lowered his phone. 4 minutes and 22 seconds of footage saved to his camera roll. He didn't post it. Not yet. He just saved it and climbed back into his cab. He'd post it 36 hours later, after an attorney from Arlington, Virginia called him and asked if he'd recorded anything at the Crossroads fuel stop on Tuesday evening. Derek put Audrey in the back of his cruiser. She sat behind the cage partition, wrists cuffed behind her back, and looked out the window as the car pulled out of the gas station lot. The Virginia pines blurred past in the last light of the evening. The radio crackled. Derek hummed along to something under his breath. She didn't speak. She had briefed 4-star generals in rooms with no windows and no names on the doors. She had sat across from members of the Senate Armed Services Committee and answered questions about supply chains that stretched across 3 continents. She had made decisions that affected the operational readiness of 62,000 service members. And now she was sitting in the back of a patrol car in a county she'd never heard of, watching pine trees blur past, because a man with a badge decided she didn't belong on his road. The irony would surface later. Audrey Sanders was on her way to Fort Liberty to oversee a classified logistics briefing, the kind that doesn't appear on public calendars, the kind where phones get locked in a box outside the door. Her schedule was booked in 15-minute increments for the next 9 days, every minute accounted for. And she was about to spend the night in a county holding cell because Derek Hollis didn't bother to read the lanyard he held in his own hand. The Stillwater County Jail smells like disinfectant and old concrete, the kind of smell that gets into your clothes and stays there. Fluorescent tubes hum overhead. One of them flickers every few seconds, casting a twitch of shadow across the hallway. The floor is gray. The walls are gray. The metal bench bolted to the wall of the holding cell is gray. Everything in this building is designed to make you feel like you've already been erased. Audrey Sanders was processed at 7:22 p.m. Fingerprinted. Photographed. Her personal belongings were placed in a plastic bag and sealed with a label. Watch, wallet, phone, car keys. The booking form listed one charge: obstruction of a law enforcement officer. Below that, Derek Hollis's badge number. Below that, nothing. No narrative section, no witness corroboration, no supervisor sign-off, no description of what exactly Audrey Sanders had done to obstruct anything. Just a charge code and a badge number. That was all it took to put a woman in a cell. They gave her one phone call. She didn't call her mother. She didn't call a friend. She didn't call her office. She called Denise Crawford. Denise Crawford was a defense attorney based in Arlington, Virginia. Before that, she spent 11 years in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, the military's own legal system. She'd defended soldiers in courts-martial. She'd prosecuted war crimes cases. She'd stood in rooms where careers and freedoms were decided by the weight of a single word. And she was the person Audrey Sanders kept on retainer, not because Audrey expected trouble, but because she understood. As a black woman in a position of extraordinary power, that trouble didn't always wait for a reason. Denise answered on the second ring. "Where are you?" Audrey gave her 3 pieces of information: the county, the charge, the badge number. Denise's voice didn't change. "Don't say another word to anyone. Not the guards, not the booking officer, not a single person in that building. I'll be there by morning." The line went dead. Audrey was escorted to a holding cell. The door closed behind her with a sound that was less of a slam and more of a seal, heavy metal settling into heavy metal. She sat on the bench, back against the wall, eyes closed, hands folded in her lap. She didn't cry, she didn't pace, she didn't bang on the bars or shout for a lawyer or demand to see a supervisor. She sat perfectly still and did what she'd been trained to do under pressure. Think. Run the variables, map the outcomes. If this, then this. If that, then that. The same way she managed logistics chains that spanned 9 time zones. The same way she allocated resources when 3 branches of the military needed the same supplies in 3 different theaters. Calm, methodical, patient. Across the hallway in another holding cell, a woman watched her through the bars. She'd been arrested earlier that evening on a DUI. She studied Audrey for a long time. The straight back, the square shoulders, the stillness that didn't look like defeat. It looked like discipline. The woman leaned closer to the bars and whispered, "You military?" Audrey opened one eye, looked at her, didn't answer, closed it again. Meanwhile, Derek Hollis sat at his desk in the station and typed up his incident report. He described Audrey Sanders as uncooperative. He described her as verbally aggressive. He wrote that she was potentially in possession of stolen military property. He described her behavior as non-compliant and her attitude as confrontational. Every single word of that report would be contradicted, line by line, second by second, by his own body camera footage. But Derek didn't think about that. He filed the report, signed his name at the bottom, clocked out, drove home, and went to bed. He slept fine that night. Audrey didn't. At 0800 the next morning, a briefing room at Fort Liberty had a problem. The chair at the head of the table was empty. The woman who was supposed to be sitting in it, the woman who had been scheduled to lead a classified logistics review affecting 62,000 service members, was not there. No call, no message, no explanation. A colonel picked up the phone and called her Pentagon office. Her office called her personal cell. No answer. They called again. Nothing. Then they called Denise Crawford. And that's the moment the machinery started turning. By 6:45 that morning, three things were happening at the same time. Denise Crawford was walking through the front door of the Stillwater County Sheriff's Office in a charcoal suit, carrying a leather attaché case, demanding to see the arresting officer's report, the body camera footage, and the complete booking record. The Pentagon's Office of General Counsel was placing a phone call to the Virginia Attorney General's office, the kind of call that doesn't come with pleasantries. And somewhere on Interstate 81, Carl Dawson was driving his rig south with 4 minutes and 22 seconds of video sitting on his phone, waiting for the moment someone would ask for it. The desk sergeant at the sheriff's office looked at Denise, looked at the business card she'd slid across the counter. It read, Denise Crawford, Esquire, former Judge Advocate General's Corps. He picked up the phone. Nobody in that building knew it yet, but the ground beneath the Stillwater County Sheriff's Department had already started to crack. Denise Crawford was escorted to the holding area at 6:32 a.m. A guard unlocked the cell door and stepped aside. Audrey was sitting exactly where she'd been all night, back against the wall, hands in her lap. Denise looked at her. Audrey looked at Denise. Then Audrey said one sentence. I need you to get my uniform off the ground. What do you mean? He pulled my ACU out of my bag and threw it on the asphalt. It's still there, on the ground. I need someone to pick it up. Denise's jaw tightened. She nodded once. I'll handle it. Think about that. This woman spent the night on a metal bench, handcuffed, fingerprinted, charged with a crime she didn't commit. And the first thing she asked for wasn't bail, wasn't a phone call. She asked someone to pick up her uniform, because to Audrey Sanders, that uniform wasn't fabric. It was a promise. And it was lying in an oil stain next to a gas pump because a man with a badge decided it was a costume. Upstairs, things were moving fast. Denise had demanded the body camera footage under Virginia state law. Sheriff Glenn Pryor drove to the office before dawn, sat at his desk, and hit play. He watched Derek approach the car. No greeting, no reason for the stop. He watched the pat-down, 90 seconds on a fully compliant subject. He watched Derek pull a military uniform out of a bag, call it a costume, and drop it on the ground. He watched him hold a Pentagon building pass for 4 seconds without reading it and toss it back. He watched Derek arrest a woman who had answered every question and never raised her voice. Then he watched the moment that mattered most. Audrey, hands cuffed behind her back, turned toward the body camera and said, My name is Audrey Sanders. I am a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Your body camera is recording this, and I want you to know that I know that. Pryor paused it, rewound, played it again. Then he opened a browser and typed her name. The results loaded in less than a second. Official Department of Defense headshot, congressional testimony transcripts, a profile in Defense One magazine, a photo of her shaking hands with the Secretary of Defense in Stuttgart. Her responsibilities: oversight of global supply chain operations, materiel readiness across all branches of the military, coordination with allied nations on logistics infrastructure. Think of it this way. She's the person who decides which supplies reach every American soldier overseas. food, fuel, ammunition, medical equipment. One phone call from her desk can reroute a cargo fleet. She had briefed the Joint Chiefs. She had testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. She held a security clearance most people in government will never know exists. And Derek Hollis put her in handcuffs because she had Maryland plates and a duffel bag. Pryor put both hands flat on his desk, didn't move for 15 seconds, then picked up the phone. 2 hours later, Audrey was brought into the Stillwater County courtroom for arraignment. Same clothes, jeans, gray hoodie, running shoes. No uniform, no insignia, nothing to indicate who she was. But the courtroom didn't look the way Derek expected. Denise had been making calls since dawn. In the gallery, a Pentagon liaison officer in full dress uniform, a JAG officer with a legal pad, a representative from the Virginia Attorney General's office, 2 reporters from the Associated Press in the back row. Someone in the DOD press office had tipped them off. Derek was sitting near the front. He noticed the uniforms but didn't connect them to his case. As far as he knew, this was a routine arraignment, open and shut. Judge Elaine Whitmore entered. She opened the case file, read the charge, read Derek's report, the one calling Audrey verbally aggressive and non-compliant. Then she reviewed Denise's submission, a printed summary of the body camera footage with timestamps. She read for a long time. Then she looked up, removed her glasses, looked directly at Audrey. Ms. Sanders, for the record, would you please state your current position? Audrey stood straight, voice calm, steady, clear. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Logistics and Materiel Readiness, Your Honor. One beat of silence. Then the entire courtroom stood. Not one by one, not in a wave, all at once, as if every person in that room drew the same breath and rose together. The Pentagon liaison, the JAG officer, Denise Crawford, the AP reporters, the local residents, the court clerk, every single person on their feet simultaneously. No one gave an order. No one signaled. They just stood. Because in that moment, every person in that room understood exactly who was standing before them and exactly what had been done to her. Derek Hollis was the only person still seated. Not because he chose to be, because his legs wouldn't move. He looked left. He looked right. Everyone was standing. The uniforms in the gallery suddenly made sense. The attorneys, the reporters, the silence pressing in from every direction. He was alone on that bench. One man sitting while an entire courtroom stood for the woman he had thrown against a hood and called trash. Judge Whitmore, still standing, put her glasses down, looked at the charge sheet, looked at Derek. Case dismissed, and I am recommending an immediate referral to the county's Internal Affairs Division for a full investigation into the conduct of the arresting officer. Within an hour, Carl Dawson's video went live. 4 minutes and 22 seconds posted to social media. The title, Deputy Arrests Black Woman at Gas Station. Turns out she's a Pentagon official. 2 million views in 18 hours. The video showed angles the body camera missed. Derek's smirk, the uniform dropping. Audrey motionless with her palms on the hood while 2 armed men towered over her. The Pentagon released a statement that afternoon. We are aware of the incident involving a senior Department of Defense official and are in contact with state and local authorities. Stillwater County, 1 stoplight, 2 churches, population under 12,000, was national news. And Derek Hollis, who went to bed thinking he'd had a routine shift, woke up to find the entire country watching his body camera footage on repeat, every frame proving him a liar. The Internal Affairs investigation was assigned to Lieutenant Nathan Burgess. 15 years on the force, grew up 2 counties over, knew the system from the inside, the paperwork, the politics, the way things got buried when nobody important was watching. Burgess was also black. The narrator in me wants to say that detail didn't matter, but it did. Whether they chose him because he was the most qualified investigator on the roster, or because they needed someone who couldn't be accused of covering for Derek Hollis. Maybe both. Probably both. Burgess requested everything. Dashcam footage, body cam footage, dispatch logs, the booking record, Derek's incident report, civilian footage, Kelsey Norris's statement, and Derek Hollis's full personnel file going back 9 years. He spread it across a conference table and started at the beginning. The dashcam footage came first. Derek's cruiser had a forward-facing camera that recorded continuously when the vehicle was running. Burgess pulled the file and scrubbed through the timeline. What he found was simple and damning. At 6:38 p.m., Derek's cruiser was parked across the street from the Crossroads fuel stop. The dashcam showed the gas station lot clearly: 2 pumps, the storefront, the parking spaces in front. At 6:41, a silver sedan with Maryland plates pulled in. A black woman stepped out. She filled her tank. She walked inside. She walked back out 3 minutes later. She opened her back door, put something on the seat, and closed it. During those 3 minutes, Derek Hollis did nothing. He didn't run the plates. He didn't call dispatch. He just watched. The dashcam timestamp confirmed it. 3 minutes and 14 seconds of observation before he made a single move. Then he pulled across the street, parked directly behind the sedan, blocking it in, activated his lights. No traffic violation had occurred. No suspicious activity had been reported. No call from dispatch prompted the stop. He watched a black woman get gas, and he decided that was enough. Burgess noted the timestamp and moved on. The body cam footage was the centerpiece. Audio was clear. Video was stable. Derek's chest-mounted camera captured everything from the moment he stepped out of his cruiser to the moment he put Audrey in the back seat. Burgess watched it 3 times. He took notes with a red pen. Here's what the footage showed. Derek approached the driver's window. His tone was immediately hostile. No identification of himself, no greeting, no stated reason for the stop. When Audrey asked, politely, clearly, why she was being stopped, Derek ignored the question. When she asked a second time, he told her to shut her mouth. The pat-down lasted 1 minute and 40 seconds. Department policy for a non-resistant subject recommends under 30 seconds. Derek's hands moved slowly across her shoulders, down her sides, along her waist. Audrey stood motionless the entire time. She did not speak. She did not resist. Derek referred to her military uniform as surplus store junk. He called it a costume. He laughed when he said it. He held her Pentagon building pass for approximately 4 seconds. The camera captured the front of the card clearly. Audrey's photograph, her name, her title in black letters. Derek didn't read it. He tossed it back into the bag. And when Audrey, standing in handcuffs beside the cruiser, looked into the body camera and stated her name and title, Derek did not react, did not pause, did not reconsider. The arrest proceeded as if she'd said nothing at all. Burgess set down his pen and stared at the frozen frame on his monitor. Derek's hand tossing the Pentagon pass back into the duffel bag. 4 seconds. That's how long he held the answer in his hand. 4 seconds was all it would have taken to read a name, a title, and understand that this stop needed to end immediately. He didn't take those 4 seconds, not because he couldn't read, because he didn't care. He had already decided who she was the moment he saw her face across the parking lot. Everything after that was just confirmation bias wearing a badge. This moment, this 4-second window, is the moment that will end his career. Not because he didn't know, because he didn't want to know. Next came the dispatch logs. Burgess pulled every record from that evening. There was no log of Derek's stop, no record of a traffic violation, no record of a suspicious activity call, no authorization for a vehicle search, nothing. Derek never called Central Dispatch before, during, or after the encounter. The only communication was a private channel radio call to Travis Boone. "Come back me up, I got one." That transmission was logged by the repeater tower but never routed through dispatch. Derek operated completely outside the system. No oversight, no accountability, No record. Until now. Then Burgess placed Derek's incident report next to the body cam transcript, side by side, line by line. The report said, subject was verbally aggressive and refused to comply with lawful orders. The body cam showed, Audrey answered every question, never raised her voice, stepped out when told, and placed her hands on the hood without being asked twice. The report said, subject was potentially in possession of stolen military property. The body cam showed an official United States Army uniform with the correct name tape, Sanders, and a Pentagon building pass bearing her photograph and title. The report said, subject arrested for obstruction after continued non-compliance. The body cam showed, she asked twice why she was being stopped. That was the full extent of her so-called obstruction. 2 polite questions. Derek Hollis didn't just arrest the wrong person, he lied about it afterward. And he did it on a form that carries the weight of a sworn statement under Virginia law. Kelsey Norris came in voluntarily. She provided a written and recorded statement describing Audrey as polite, calm, and completely unremarkable. She said she watched the arrest through the gas station window and couldn't believe what I was seeing. She confirmed that she preserved the interior and exterior CCTV footage on her own initiative, walked to the back office and saved the files before the system could overwrite them. Nobody asked her to do it. She just did it because she knew something was wrong. Then Burgess opened Derek's personnel file. 3 prior complaints in 9 years. He read them one by one. Complaint 1, excessive force during a traffic stop. The complainant was a 19-year-old black teenager driving his mother's car. Finding, unfounded. The body cam footage from that stop was listed as unavailable due to equipment malfunction. Complaint 2, racial slur allegation during a domestic disturbance call. The complainant was a Hispanic woman. Finding, inconclusive. The primary witness recanted her statement 2 weeks after filing. Complaint 3, unlawful search of a vehicle. The complainant was a black man driving a late-model luxury sedan. Finding, exonerated. The dashcam footage was, once again, unavailable due to equipment malfunction. 3 complaints. 3 black or brown complainants. 3 times the system found a way to look the other way. And now, the 4th time, the system couldn't look away because the whole country was watching. Burgess interviewed Travis Boone on a Wednesday afternoon. Travis sat across the table in civilian clothes. No badge, no weapon. He'd been placed on administrative leave the day after the arraignment. His hands were shaking. Under questioning, Travis admitted that Derek radioed him on the private channel and said, "Come back me up, I've got one." Burgess asked him what "got one" meant. Travis looked at the table. It meant he had to stop. Burgess asked again, "What did one mean, Deputy Boone?" Travis didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, "I think you know what it meant." Travis admitted he never questioned the stop, never asked what the probable cause was, never looked at the Pentagon ID, never read the name tape on the uniform. He just followed Derek's lead. And when Derek called the uniform a costume, Travis laughed. He admitted that under oath. "I shouldn't have laughed," he said. "I knew it was wrong when I did it. I didn't want to be the one to say something." Burgess compiled his findings into a 42-page report. 5 formal findings. Unlawful stop. No reasonable suspicion or probable cause. Unlawful arrest. Obstruction charge entirely unsupported by evidence. Excessive use of authority. Filing a false official report. And a documented pattern of racially motivated policing spanning 9 years and 4 complaints. He submitted the report to Sheriff Pryor and the county attorney simultaneously. Same morning, same envelope, no courtesy copy to Derek Hollis. 2 days later, Derek was summoned to the sheriff's office. He walked in expecting something. Maybe a conversation, maybe a warning, maybe support from the man who'd been his boss for 9 years. Instead, Pryor slid the IA report across the desk without a word. Derek picked it up. read the first page. His face changed. The color left it slowly, like a tide going out. Pryor watched him read. Then he spoke. "You had her identification in your hand, Derek." Derek looked up. "I didn't think it was real." Pryor leaned forward. "You didn't think, period." The room was quiet for a long time. That same week, the Department of Defense Inspector General's office opened a parallel inquiry into the treatment of a senior defense official by local law enforcement. The FBI's Civil Rights Division confirmed it was monitoring the case. The Virginia State Police began reviewing whether to file state-level charges against Derek Hollis for filing a false police report and for violating Audrey Sanders's civil rights under color of law. This wasn't a local story anymore. This wasn't a small-town deputy facing a reprimand from his boss. Derek Hollis was now at the center of a federal investigation, a state inquiry, a viral video with 12 million views, and an internal affairs report that painted a picture of a man who had been doing this for 9 years and getting away with it every single time. Until now. The Stillwater County disciplinary hearing was held on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after Audrey Sanders was arrested at a gas station for the crime of asking for directions. The hearing room was standing room only. Local residents filled the gallery, some who'd lived in Stillwater their whole lives and had never once set foot inside this building. Reporters from 3 national outlets sat in the front row, a camera crew set up in the back corner, and at the center table, flanked by his attorney, sat Derek Hollis. He was wearing a suit, no badge, no uniform. He'd been placed on unpaid suspension the day after the IA report was submitted. He hadn't worn the uniform since. The evidence was presented systematically. Dash cam footage, body cam footage, dispatch logs showing no record of the stop. Derek's incident report, placed next to the body cam transcript, line by line, lie by lie. The 3 prior complaints, Travis Boone's sworn testimony, Kelsey Norris's written statement, Carl Dawson's cell phone video, the CCTV footage Kelsey had saved. Every piece laid out in order, one after another, like bricks being stacked into a wall that Derek Hollis could not climb over. Derek's attorney presented his defense. He argued that his client acted in good faith, that out-of-state plates and an unusually large bag constituted reasonable suspicion, that paying with cash in a rural area was consistent with patterns associated with narcotics trafficking, that Derek exercised the professional judgment expected of a veteran law enforcement officer. The panel listened. Then the county attorney responded. Paying with cash is not suspicious. It's legal. Having a duffel bag is not suspicious. It's luggage. Having Maryland plates in Virginia is not suspicious. It's driving. None of these, individually or combined, meet the legal threshold for reasonable suspicion under the Fourth Amendment. And none of them explain why Deputy Hollis watched a black woman for 3 minutes before initiating contact, never called dispatch, conducted a 90-second pat-down on a fully compliant subject, ignored a valid Pentagon identification, threw a United States military uniform on the ground, and arrested a woman whose only offense was asking why she was being stopped. Derek was given the opportunity to testify. He sat up straight and said, "I was doing my job." He was asked why he didn't read the Pentagon building pass he held in his hand for 4 seconds. He said, "I didn't think it was relevant." He was asked why his written report described the encounter differently from what the body cam footage showed. He opened his mouth, paused, looked at his attorney. His attorney leaned into the microphone and said, "My client declines to answer on the advice of counsel." The room was silent. The ruling came within the hour. Derek Hollis, terminated from the Stillwater County Sheriff's Department effective immediately. Decertified as a law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That meant he could never carry a badge anywhere in the state again. Not in Stillwater. Not in any of Virginia's 133 counties. His career in law enforcement was over. Permanently. Additionally, His case was referred to the county prosecutor for potential charges of filing a false official report, a Class 1 misdemeanor carrying up to 12 months in jail and a fine of up to $2,500. Travis Boone, suspended without pay for 90 days, required to complete 40 hours of mandatory de-escalation and implicit bias training, a permanent note placed in his personnel file. But the consequences didn't stop at the department. Denise Crawford filed a federal civil rights lawsuit under Section 1983 against Derek Hollis personally and the Stillwater County Sheriff's Department. The suit alleged unlawful stop, unlawful arrest, excessive use of authority, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, and racial discrimination. The county settled within 4 months for an undisclosed amount. As part of the settlement, the department agreed to 3 reforms: mandatory body camera review for every use of force incident, implicit bias training for all sworn officers, and the creation of a civilian oversight board with subpoena power. And then something happened that no one in Stillwater County expected. The Virginia State Legislature introduced a bill, informally called the Sanders Bill, requiring all law enforcement officers in the Commonwealth to log every traffic stop through Central Dispatch before initiating contact with a civilian. The bill passed committee unanimously and moved to the floor. 1 arrest, 1 gas station, 1 woman who refused to disappear. And now the law was changing. Derek Hollis walked out of the hearing room that Thursday afternoon. No badge, no gun, no uniform. Just a man in a borrowed suit walking across a parking lot. A reporter called out and asked for a comment. Derek said nothing, got in his truck, pulled out of the lot, drove away. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about a system that, when forced to look at itself, chose, for once, to correct course. Audrey Sanders returned to the Pentagon 48 hours after her arrest. She showered, she changed, she put on the same kind of suit she wore every day, navy blue, pressed clean, no wrinkles. She drove to Fort Liberty and walked into the briefing room 2 days behind schedule. The officers present stood when she entered, not because they'd heard the news, because that's protocol when a senior official walks into the room. But this time, it meant more. And everyone in that room knew it. She delivered her briefing. Every slide, every data point, every logistics recommendation covering 62,000 service members across multiple theaters. She didn't mention the arrest. She didn't mention Stillwater County. She didn't mention Derek Hollis. She did her job. The same job she'd been doing before a man at a gas station decided she didn't deserve to exist on his road. She continues to serve as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Logistics and Materiel Readiness. She has not given a single interview about the incident. Her spokesperson released one statement. Ms. Sanders is focused on her mission and has no further comment on the matter. That's it. No press tour, no book deal, no victory lap. Just silence and work. Kelsey Norris, the 22-year-old gas station clerk who saved the CCTV footage, was offered a full college scholarship by a veterans advocacy organization that learned what she'd done. She accepted. She's studying criminal justice. She didn't film for likes. She didn't post for clout. She walked to a back office and pressed save because she knew something was wrong. Sometimes that's enough. Carl Dawson still drives long-haul routes up and down the East Coast. His video has been viewed over 12 million times. He declined every interview request except one, a local Virginia radio station. He said, "I just pointed my phone and hit record. I didn't do anything brave, she did." But here's what stays with me. In Audrey Sanders' office at the Pentagon, a building where decisions are made that shape the safety of nations, she keeps a framed photograph on her desk. It's not an award. It's not a commendation. It's not a picture of her shaking hands with a general or a senator. It's a photograph of her grandmother, wearing a nurse's uniform, taken in 1961 in Birmingham, Alabama. Her grandmother was arrested once, too, for sitting at a lunch counter. 2 generations, 2 arrests, one for sitting down, one for standing still. What would you have done? If you were Kelsey behind that counter, would you have saved that footage? If you were Carl at the pump, would you have hit a record? And if you were Audrey, hands on the hood, knowing exactly who you are while someone told you that you were nothing, what would you have said? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story made you think, even for a second, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because stories like this, they don't end, they echo.